First tweet I had here was from Peter Schiff. Now I did a YouTube short on this, and it was basically, it was interesting to me. Okay, I'll go. I only had like 60 seconds on the short, but just the tweet. It says, one of the many things the 2023 financial crisis has in common with the 2008 financial crisis is that the financial media had no idea that either had started. With the 2008 crisis began, the financial media was telling its audience not to worry, and they're saying the same thing again. So my question originally was, are we in a financial crisis? And the problem with that is look, you have to have some sort of definition of crisis. Is two banks in the United States failing, along with one large bank in Europe that might fail or might not? That's, they're saying that they're not going to fail now because the Central Bank of Switzerland is going to step in. Anyway, you have to define what a crisis is. I feel like we're dealing with a financial crisis, but I feel like it's inflation that's causing the problem. I cannot tell you, living in the United States, you just do not understand how evil inflation is. I mean, it's very, very bad. But anyway, so that was it. Number two, I don't watch the news anymore. Haven't watched the news for a long time. I know there's this weird thing. If somebody is an expert and they say it's true, then everybody just goes ahead and says it's true. So I can see where you would, even in 2008, people wouldn't have said that there was a crisis if they had their own house and they weren't leaving or weren't planning on moving and they didn't need a job. They were fine. And that was the third part is what would it take for you to believe that there's a financial crisis? At what moment would you say, oh my God, this is a crisis? And I say that because, these things affect people differently. If you've got a good job, if you've got a house in the 3%, if you can afford groceries, you can afford fuel, is it a bad time to be alive? Relatively, not too bad. But if you don't have money for a house, if you've got credit card debt, if you are worried that your job is going to be one of the first ones gone, and inflation is eating your lunch, inflation is eating your lunch every week, then you probably think it's a financial crisis. So we have to deal with definitions. I don't know what the definition is, but gosh, it seems like there's a problem, doesn't it? Here's a tweet by Nick. I'm going to go with Garely. I don't know. I don't mean to be offensive if it's something else. I should watch he's got the #1 real estate channel on YouTube with over 3 million monthly views. I don't have the #1 real estate channel on YouTube because I don't do charts like this. It says investors are freaking out right now. U.S. Treasury yields plummeted an insane 80 basis points the last 2 days. The biggest drop in yield since 1987 flash crash, bigger than what happened after 9/11 and Lehman Brothers. Is a market collapse coming? Seems like we should pay more attention to this. It says, reason this is happening is because investors are buying up government treasuries due to their perceived safety, which pushes down their yields. Investors tend to scramble to do this in times of crisis and uncertainty, hence other events being in 1987, 2001, and 2008. There's also another big warning signs flashing. Look at oil prices, down nearly 7% so far today, and have collapsed by nearly 50% from the highs last year when Russia invaded Ukraine. Suggests collapsing demand in the economy. Number three, how about the housing market? Mortgage applications to buy a house are down 39% year over year, nearly at the lowest level in 30 years. Full scale collapse in mortgage origination. Now look, I feel like that's unfair. It might be true, but you've had a historic shift in the behavior of the consumer in this particular industry. And something had to happen at some point in time. Okay, so you're good. Number four, whether it's treasury yields, oil, or mortgages, they paint a similar picture. Big problems ahead in the economy. So yes, this could potentially be the start of a full-scale market collapse and recession. The indicators are all there except for one possibility. The treasury market right now could simply be betting on a Fed pivot. Something similar happened in the late 70s. Fed was hiking aggressively back then, and investors kept betting on rate cuts, creating huge yield volatility. Eventually, that late 70s yield volatility ended in horrific double-dip recession, where the unemployment rate spiked to nearly 11% in 1982. Excluding COVID, that was the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression. So the historical record says a market collapse is coming, but it's unclear on when. The examples of 1987 flash crash and Lehman 2008 say it's imminent, but the late 1970s say we could be at the beginning of a 3 to 4 years of melees. What will it be? Then somebody else writes, the Ray hypesters don't understand. They will say this is great for price. 71% of home purchases include a mortgage, which will become hard to get soon. And then I thought I did see this one here, watch. This guy here, he writes, You are projecting. What investors are you referring to who are freaking out? You are young and inexperienced. This is a very modest down day and extremely orderly selling. When investors freak out, it will look very different. It's like, it's bad, but it's not as bad as it could be. I do understand the young and ignorant. I do understand the young and ignorant concept. The things I know now at 45 versus what I thought I knew at 23. Wow. This is Jeff Winiger. He writes, the metrics point to job losses and rapidly declining inflation, a thread. 2 of 9, here it says, a ton of job openings now, but the NFIB survey of small businesses tells us it goes down next, maybe sharply. Struggling companies to fire people. It's hitting tech hard. Banks make logical sense for layoffs now, given the insolvency and bank bailout of Silicon Valley Bank. Loan officers have been tightening lending standards since 2021. The latest report for the current quarter was very tight, and that was several weeks before Silicon Valley Bank ruptured. Tightening lending standards equals S&P 500 earnings declines. Fewer employees, earnings down, and now your office lease is up for renewal. What are you going to do? You lease space for 100 cubicles, but 10 workers show up on Fridays. Yes, we will renew, but cut the price and cut the square footage, which means there's vacancies. Also, money supply growth is negative. Home sellers can't leave their 3% mortgage to take on a 6.73% mortgage. Buyers can't do it either. Maybe mortgage lending standards get strict too, now that we have the SVB fiasco. Now, it says housing-related careers have a tough battle. People who lose their job go delinquent. Now, look, I'm in real estate. You would suspect that I'm going to get hammered. I'm not going to get hammered. Just telling you that right now. I was through the great 2008 issue, and I understand it. All it means is I don't get to spend money like a drunken sailor, okay? All it means is all the money I bring in, I have to keep, I have to hold. And you may say, well, John, that's a dumb idea to hold that money, given that inflation is eating away at that dollar every day. I hear you. But I've learned in business that cash is king, okay? Of all else, cash is king, and it will get you through any problem. Cash, not credit, not lines of credit. Those are dangerous. But he's bringing something. Look, here's one of my concerns. If you got a mortgage at 3% and you bought the best house, you maxed out, okay? You bought the biggest and best house you possibly could, and you're at 3%. And now what happens if you lose your job and can't afford the payments on a 3% mortgage? Oh my God, you got a double whammy, because if you do lose your house, you're not going anywhere better for sure. And I mean, even if you refinance, how are you going to refinance it below 3%? Like, how is the government going to step in and fix that one? I'm sure they'll try, but my gosh, you got a problem. CPI is 6% year over year. Few seers think it can get below the Fed's 2% target. Yet job losses, recession, depression, office real estate, housing recession, negative money supply, skittish planks. This is disinflationary, not inflationary. I want to thank those of you who followed 2021 when I was warning about inflation, but the economic cycle has progressed. It's at the end of the cycle, the liquidation phase, liquidation of houses, office, story stocks, jobs, and disinflation. I mean, look, I don't have the artistry or the ability to write tweets and have graphs, but this is what I'm thinking. Darth Powell says, we have more homes to population than any time in history, the worst working age demographics in history, and the most homes under construction in history. He has this graph. This isn't good, by the way. This is this whole concept of absentee home ownership or absentee shadow inventory that I remember during 2008, and I feel like it exists now, but I can't prove it. It says, then somebody writes, what do you think, or why do you think prices haven't adjusted downward yet? Aside from Fed manipulation, really curious giving the data, yet prices are still very high. When you look at wages, salaries, inflation, interest rates, thanks. And he says this is a very slow moving ship. And this is what I've been saying in my own talks. I mean, my lender and I sit there and we're watching, or have been watching, people with $1,500 a month car payments, $2,000 a month car payments for 7 years. And then they want to get a mortgage. And my lender's like, no, I can't, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do for you. And we're like, this can't, and then we're going out and looking at houses, and it's like, you know, the lender needs to know, like, say the lender gives you a pre-approval for $300,000 and you go to a house and it's for $300,000 and you know there's going to be 5 other people bidding. Well, you're not going to be at $300,000 on the asking price. So you go back to the lender and you say, hey, can you do the numbers again and see if we can get 310, 320? And then they say, well, let's look. And then they come back with an answer. So the lender is in on this. Okay. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, at least they're trying to get a deal done for the buyer, but we're looking at this stuff and it's like, why is nobody saying anything? I mean, like I've told you, I want a used car. We have 1 car as a family right now. That's not really true. We have 2, but the daughter has 1. But anyway, we would like another car. I refuse to buy a used car right now. I just refuse. I mean, I'm not spending more than $20,000 on a 10-year-old car. Okay. It's just not going to happen. I think that's insane. And then to look at a new car, Well, let's just look at trucks. Okay, when I was a kid, I hate to say it, truck $20,000 on a truck, brand new truck, that was living large. Living large. Now you go look at the cheapest truck you can buy in America. I have a friend that just bought a truck, the one step up on a Chevy, with a 4-cylinder engine, 40 some odd thousand. With an 8-cylinder or diesel, you're looking at $80,000 for a pickup truck. I mean, come on. I mean, this is going to affect your insurance rates, property tax. I mean, that's the other thing. That's what we were talking about with my lender. You know, all of your property tax is based on like what was received now. Okay. And if you happen to be one of those unfortunate souls that lived in a neighborhood where the price went from 200,000 to 350,000 in the span of a year, you haven't even gotten the updated property tax bill. Because at least in Missouri, the St. Louis side, okay, it's every 2 years. So the assessment's every 2 years, or the change. I mean, if you think that number is not going to blow people away, okay, it's really going to cause problems. But these are things that take time. Like I said, 2 years for a reassessment. So not great. And I do believe it's a slow moving ship. This thing, and when it, like we've all, like I've also been saying, we're all looking for this one moment to say, you know, hey, here it is. Peter Schiff, the financial crisis has begun. I don't know if it has or not. You know, I just know that things are wild. We would have thought that the Silicon Valley Bank was that moment, but the speed in which the government stepped in to guarantee deposits, which I'm not interested in the should they have or shouldn't they have. They did, you know? And so it's like, man, maybe that wasn't the issue, but now we got Credit Suisse, one of the largest banks in the world, seemingly having problems. But this has been rumored. This isn't news, really. I mean, this has been rumored for, 6 months, 8 months, a year maybe. I've heard Credit Suisse's name. So anyway,